The National Union of Metalworkers of South Africa says it is studying the court judgment which interdicted the union's National Congress from going ahead this week. This after a group of Numsa officials went to the Labour Court in Johannesburg in an attempt to have their suspensions lifted. Now, the officials claim they were suspended by the trade union in recent months, alleging that this was an effort to prevent their participation in the National Congress, where new national office bearers will be elected. The Congress was set to start today in Cape Town. Numsa's suspended Deputy President Ruth Ntlokotse is one of the officials who sought the interdict, and she joins us now following the discussion. So, for the following discussion, I should say. Thank you very, very much for joining us, Ruth. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Good morning, Leanne, and your listeners. I'm no longer the suspended Second Deputy President. I think the court has absolved me. I'm no longer suspended.
The court has absolved you? Didn't it reserve judgment in the suspension?
The court has actually pronounced that our suspension was unconstitutional, invalid, and unenforceable, meaning that as we speak, we are no longer suspended, as per the court judgment that was issued on Saturday.
So let me get this straight. So is this according to you, or is this according to Numsa, that you are now back in the position of Second Deputy President? Is that confirmed? Have they confirmed this? Because from what we last heard was that the Labour Court in Johannesburg had reserved judgment on this particular case.
The judgment was issued Saturday in the afternoon.
Okay, good.
As things stand, there is a judgment that the court has actually pronounced that 29 members of Numsa, together with the officials who were suspended, their suspension, it was unconstitutional, invalid, and unenforceable. So as things stand, Leanne, there is a judgment issued by court.
Okay. Can we now then, I suppose, ask you for the latest on whether or not the Numsa Elective Conference is going ahead as planned? Because in the introduction, we were saying that it is not going to go ahead.
I think Numsa operates within the prescripts and the ambit of the constitution of this country. And subsequent to that, there's a Labour Relations Act. And the application that we went to court, it was from the section 158, 1E of the Labour Relations Act. And the court has to pronounce based on the powers that were vested from it by the constitution of this country. And Numsa, being the trade union that operates within the prescripts and the ambit of the constitution, we are binded by the court decision. So as things stand, the court decision, it is binding to Numsa.
Okay, so my question to you now is the conference going ahead? Because it is planned to go ahead, to start today until the 29th of July at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. So with what has transpired, with what you're telling us has transpired, is the conference going ahead?
Leanne, I'm not at the conference as we speak. The union has not extended their invitation to me post the pronouncement of court. So I cannot speak on behalf of whether the Congress is still proceeding or not. But what I'm telling you is that the court has actually pronounced on the interdict, and there were quite a number of requirements that Numsa has to undertake before they can convene a successful Congress. And then among other issues that the court has pronounced upon is the issue of the Credentials Committee. Our constitution is very much clear that before we can go to the Congress, there has to be a Credentials Committee that is appointed by the Central Executive Committee. That has never taken place. And then secondly, one of the regions, which is in Mpumalanga, it was put under administration. And as a result of that, workers from Mpumalanga are not part and parcel of this Congress. And the court has pronounced on that in terms of our constitution, there is no administration. So the court has actually said workers from Mpumalanga, they must be allowed to participate in that Congress. In a nutshell, the court has actually compelled that we need to follow our constitution to the letter, including those suspended members of Numsa who were not supposed to be part and parcel of that. And Leanne, on Thursday, the 20th of July, there was a letter issued by the General Secretary of Numsa, where additional members of Numsa were barred from attending the Congress. And then among other issues that were advanced in that letter was that workers whom it was alleged that they misconducted themselves during the SABC Congress, they were barred from attending the Numsa Congress. And then also, there were members whom it was alleged that they marched to the Numsa head office in Newtown. They were also barred from attending the Congress, which is contrary to what our constitution stipulates as to who should constitute the delegate to the Congress. So what the court has actually pronounced is that the Central Executive Committee has taken law into itself. They've actually pronounced as to who should form the part and parcel of the delegation. So the court has actually said, we need to follow our constitution to the latter. Yeah. Basically, that's the judgment. That is all about.
Yeah. So I'm reading the latest, something that I just jumped up here, saying that this came out of Cape Town, saying that the actual the conference has been interdicted. So that's what I'm reading in terms of the latest here. So it appears that you're not going to be there, but it also appears that it is not going ahead. This will not go ahead as planned. But, I mean, you would know more than I do, but that's what I'm reading ahead of me here.
As things stand, that's the directive from the court, from the Labour Court on Saturday, that this Congress, it is interdicted. It's
interdicted. Okay, so, I mean, the problem here, that could this not have been settled out of court? From some of the things that have been going on. I mean, Irvin Jim basically saying, with you included, that these officials, these 50 officials, including you, were suspended for misconduct and claims of being targeted by union membership. And this is kind of what he's saying is trying to undermine democratic centralism in the union and to collapse the conference, which is kind of what is happening at the moment. So, could this not have been sorted out of courts? What was going on?
Leanne, what has actually emerged in the recent past is that democracy within the union, it is actually trampled upon. And, most of the workers that have been suspended, including myself, let me start with my suspension. I was suspended for standing on the position of SAFTU president, where I was elected as the SAFTU president against the wish of Numsa. And I must indicate upfront that this was not an isolated incident. It happened in the past. 2006, when we were still under COSATU, where Comrade Zanukolo Waile contested against Madisha, and there were no consequences. And then subsequent to that, there was the Comrade Puta Steki contesting against the current president of Numsa in the provincial congress of COSATU. And there were no consequences pertaining that. So what has actually happened to me is it is foreign. And, surprisingly, to make matters worse, immediately after I was elected, the very same General Secretary of Numsa issued the statement on behalf of the union, congratulating me that they are for women's development. They were actually thrilled about my election as a president of SAFTU. Then the Central Committee was called on the 11th to the 12th of July. And then he presented the report in that Central Committee that I acted outside the Numsa's caucus, which does not have any constitutional standing in terms of the prescript of our constitution, that I defined myself out of the collective, and as a result of that, the decision was taken that I has to be suspended. And other leaders who are suspended, they were demanding for accountability from our investment company. So when we are saying that all these issues, they should have been resolved internally, I fully agree with you. But what has actually emerged from our Central Executive Committee, which is the highest decision-making body in between the congresses, is that the dissenting views are no longer acceptable. Once people start to raise their dissenting views, they are being regarded as defining themselves out of e-collective. And as a result of that, number of leaders in the regions, the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, the Mpumalanga, even other local office bearers, they were suspended as a result of that. Indeed. So democracy, it's no longer accepted. Dissenting views, it's no longer tolerated within the structures of the union. So we're left with no choice but to approach court.
At the end of the day, there are 300,000 members here that are looking towards leadership. And now you have an elective conference that, of course, is not going to go ahead, as what we're hearing here. And there's a lot of battles on the top for leadership and for the heart of all of this. Where to from here? And very quickly, if I may ask, I'm sorry, there just is no time. We're already into news. Where do we go? Where do we go with this battle?
You know, this is a sad day. I must indicate up front, Leanne, that we had to approach court. And, you know, this Congress, it is the Congress that is not supposed only to deal with the leadership elections. There are workers out there who are facing hard conditions. Their conditions of employment are being trampled upon. The centralized bargaining is under attack. This Congress, it was meant to deal with a number of issues, challenges that are confronted with our members. And, you know, because of the Central Committee failed to provide leadership and direction in terms of how this Congress should be constituted, this is where we are. I'm of the firm view that Numsa, they must follow the prescripts of the judgment and make sure that when we go to the Congress, we do go to the Congress with all members of Numsa being represented through their shop steward in that Congress, so that decisions that will come out of that Congress, it will be decisions that speaks to the issues that are affecting our members out there, not to be consumed with who should be elected in that. Okay. I think this is the sad day for the trade union. And in general, not only to Numsa, even in other trade union movements, that we need to follow our constitution as our guiding documents.
All right, I have to wrap it there. That, of course, was suspended, but now apparently not suspended after what has been said from the court. Second Deputy President of Numsa talking to us here on the program. That's Ruth Ntlokotse talking to us as to what is going on with this elective conference that was meant to start today, but it seems that it has been interdicted for now, so we have to wait for a future date on that conference. All right, let's